So we have 30 minutes to figure this out. Um, I wanted to read the first chapter of Wholehearted Living by Brene Brown. It's an old book, well, given the fact that it's been out for at least 10 years. So let's do courage, compassion, and connection. The gifts of imperfection. Practicing courage, compassion, and connection in our daily lives is how we cultivate worthiness. The key word is practice. Mary Daly, a theologian, writes, courage is like it's a habitus, a habit of virtue. You get it by courageous acts. It's like you learn to swim by swimming. You learn courage by couraging. The same is true for compassion and connection. We invite compassion into our lives when we act compassionately toward ourselves and others, and we feel connected in our lives when we reach out and connect. So, this is a problem that I'm having. I can't connect, and I hope that this book allows me to see why that's not working for me. Before I define these concepts and talk about how they work, I want to show you how they work together in real life as practices. This is a personal story about the courage to reach out, the compassion that comes from saying, I've been there, and the connections that fuel our worthiness. The gun for hire shame storm. Several years ago, the principal of a large public elementary school and the president of the school's parent teacher organization, or PTO, invited me to speak to a group of parents about the relationship between resilience and boundaries. I was in the process of collecting data about wholehearted parenting in schools at the time, so I was excited about the opportunity. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I can't relate. I don't have children in elementary school, so this is bound to be a boring subject for me, but let's go on. The second I walked into the school auditorium, I felt this really strange vibe from the parents in the audience. They almost seemed agitated. I asked the principal about it, and she just shrugged her shoulders and walked away. The PTO president didn't have much to say about it either. I chalked it up to my nerves and tried to let it go. This particular segment reminds me of a girlfriend that I had years ago who had breast implants. And whenever she showed up at her little girl's school, the people there um, were just standoffish. I was sitting in the front row when the principal introduced me. This is always a very awkward experience for me. Someone is running through a list of my accomplishments while I'm secretly trying to stave off vomiting and talking myself out of running. Well, this introduction was beyond anything I had ever experienced. I'm sure she was very, um, you know, I mean, they were probably really glad to have her there. This book did really well when it came out. The principal was saying things like, you might not like what you're going to hear tonight, but we need to listen for the sake of our children. Dr. Brown is here to transform our school and our lives. She's going to set us straight, whether we like it or not. She was talking in this loud, aggressive voice that made her seem downright pissed off. I felt like I was being introduced for WWE WrestleMania. All we needed were a few strobe lights. By the way, have you guys seen Gorgeous Ladies of Glow? Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling? It is a Netflix series. It's really good. It dates, it's a period film or actually series, and it takes place in the 80s, and it's about the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. In hindsight, I should have walked up to the podium and said, I'm feeling very uncomfortable. I'm excited to be here, but I'm certainly not here to set anyone straight. I also don't want you to think that I'm trying to transform your school in an hour. What's going on? But I didn't. I just started talking in my vulnerable. I'm a researcher, but I am also a struggling parent way. Well, the die had been cast. These parents were not receptive. Instead, I felt row after row of people glaring at me. So, people have a lot of different reasons for the way they act. I'm sure some of these parents were going through their own situations, and, 99% of showing up is getting there. A lot of the times people can't show up. So, the fact that these people were there, that goes to show you that they were already annoyed by that, right? Okay. One man who was sitting right up front had his arms folded across his chest and his teeth clenched so tightly that the veins in his neck were popping out. Every 3 or 4 minutes, he'd shift in his seat, roll his eyes, and sigh louder than I've ever heard anyone sigh. It was so loud that I'm barely comfortable calling it a sigh. It was more like a humph. It was so bad that the people next to him were visibly mortified by his behavior. They were still inexplicably unhappy with me, but he was making the entire evening unbearable for all of us. Listen, like I said, most people, when you got to be somewhere, half the battle is showing up. Now you're there. So, as an experienced teacher and group leader, I know how to handle these situations and am normally comfortable doing so. When someone is being disruptive, you really only have two choices: ignore them or take a break so that you can privately confront them about their inappropriate behavior. I was so knocked off by my game by this weird experience that I did the very worst thing possible. I tried to impress them. That happens a lot, especially people who are in the public eye or center stage. Um, we have a tendency to, react to people in front of us. I started talking louder and getting really animated. I quoted scary research statistics that would freak out any parent. I served up my authenticity for a big old helping of you better listen to me or your kids are going to drop out of third grade and take up hitchhiking, drugs, and running with scissors. As a writer, I feel like I really like this writer because she's so down to earth. Nothing. Nada. I didn't get a head nod or a slight grin or anything. I just managed to freak out the other 250 already pussy parents. It was a disaster. Trying to co opt or win over someone like that guy is always a mistake because it means trading in your authenticity for approval. You stop believing in your worthiness and start hustling for it. And oh man, was I hustling. I can relate. Part of becoming a content creator is realizing that at the end of the day, on a yearly basis, you're going to have to put out and shell out about $1,000 just to keep in business. So, you know, you got to give a little to get a little back. The second the talk ended, I grabbed my stuff and ran a walk to my car. As I was pulling out of the parking lot, my face was growing hotter. I felt small and my heart was racing. I tried to push back the instant replay of me acting crazy, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The shame storm was brewing. It sounds like she's reflecting on having showing showed off, right? So, it happens to everybody. We have a tendency of being very proud of our achievements. So, maybe she threw it in their face a little bit. When the shame winds down, winds are whip. Okay, start over. When the shame winds are whipping all around me, it's almost impossible to hold on to any perspective or recall anything good about myself. I have went right into the bad self-talk of God. I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that? The greatest gift of having done this work, the research and the personal work, is that I can recognize shame when it's happening. First, I know my physical symptoms of shame: the dry mouth, time slowing down, tunnel vision, hot face, racing heart. I know that playing the painful slow motion reel over and over in my head is a warning sign. Listen, I can relate to that. I mean, have you ever been on a call with someone and all of a sudden you're in an argument and then you realize you're the guy that was wrong and now you have to apologize on top of being like red faced? Yeah. I also know that the very best thing to do with this happening feels totally counterintuitive. Practice courage and reach out. We have to own our story and share it with someone who has earned the right to hear it. Someone whom we can count on to respond with compassion. We need courage, compassion, and connection ASAP. Shame hates it when we reach out and tell our story. So I kind of want to stop right there because it's, going on 10 minutes. But at the end of the day, this is really important and we should read it. Shame hates it when we reach out and tell our story. It hates having words wrapped around it. It can't survive being shared. Shame loves secrecy. The most dangerous thing to do after a shaming experience is hide or bury our story. When we bury our story, the shame metastasizes. I remember saying out loud, I need to talk to someone right now. Be brave, Bren. But here's the tricky part about compassion and connecting. We can't call just anyone. It's not that simple. I have a lot of good friends, but there are only a handful of people whom I can count on to practice compassion when I'm in the dark shame place. If we share a shame story with the wrong person, they can easily become one more piece of flying debris in an already dangerous storm. We want solid connection in a situation like this. Something akin to a sturdy tree firmly planted in the ground. We definitely want to avoid the following. So again, it reminds me of like several stories, but um, recently I went to see my mom. She confided in me something that she probably, you know, and even I don't even know if she should have confided in me, but at the end of the day, she did. And not knowing the full story, I may have jumped the gun, right? Um, I'm ashamed of it, and it's a learning experience. What can I tell you? So we definitely want to avoid the following. Number one, I feel sorry for you. Sympathy versus empathy. This one's a good one. The person who responds with sympathy, I feel sorry for you rather than empathy. I get it. I feel with you and I've been there. The subtext of this response is distance. These things don't happen to me or to people like me. If you want to see a shame clone turn deadly, throw one of these at it. Oh, you poor thing, or bless your heart. Number two, you should feel shame, judgment. The person who hears the story and actually feels shame for you. The friend gasps and confirms how horrified you should be. Then there is an awkward silence. Then you have to make this person feel better by convincing them that you're not a terrible person. You've let me down. Number three, you've let me down. Disappointment. The person who needs you to be the pillar of worthiness and authenticity. This person can't help you because they are too disappointed in your imperfections. You let this person down. Number four, this feels terrible. Who can we blame? You? Discharging discomfort with blame. Because shame is visceral and contagious, we can feel it for other people. This person immediately needs to discharge the discomfort and vulnerability of the situation by blaming and scolding. They may blame scold you. What were you thinking? Or they may look for someone else to take the fall. Who was that guy? We'll kick his butt. Caution, parents can fall easily into this when a child shares a shaming story with them. How did you let this happen? So, to recall a particular setting, I remember telling my sister once that I felt like I wasn't part of the family, and to which she replied, I'm sorry that you feel that way. At which point, my guard literally dropped, and I had the need to remove myself from the situation immediately because there was no talking to the person. Um, I was heated and it was clear they weren't being receptive, right? Right. Okay. So, number five, let's make this go away. Minimizing, avoiding. We minimize and avoid when we want hard feelings to go away. Out of their own discomfort, this person refuses to acknowledge that you're in pain and or that you're hurting. You're exaggerating. It wasn't that bad. You rock. You're perfect. Everyone loves you. I felt that too. And I've been there too. Ooh, excuse me. If you think that's bad, comparing, competing, this person confuses connecting with you, share with your few over shared experiences. This is a very typical thing. That's nothing. Listen to what happened to me one time. Um, I have a problem of doing that a lot. I wonder if that's learned behavior because the other day I experienced that with my mother. Okay, so um, 16:15. I think we'll stop there.